The money mistakes keeping you poor probably don't feel like mistakes at all. That's what makes them so dangerous. You don't wake up one morning and decide to sabotage your financial future. You don't consciously choose stress, debt, or years of living paycheck to paycheck. Yet somehow, despite working hard, trying to be responsible, and wanting a better life, you keep finding yourself in the same financial position. And if that's happening to you, there's something uncomfortable you need to hear. The biggest financial mistakes are rarely dramatic. They don't look like gambling away your savings. They don't look like reckless spending sprees. They don't look like obvious disasters. They look normal. That's the problem. They're disguised as everyday behavior. Behavior so common that entire groups of people repeat it for decades without questioning it. Meanwhile, a small number of people quietly avoid these patterns and end up building wealth almost by accident. Almost. The strange part is that both groups usually believe they're making smart decisions. One group moves forward, the other stays stuck. So what separates them? Why can two people earn similar incomes, live in similar neighborhoods, face similar challenges, and end up with completely different financial futures? The answer isn't hidden in some advanced investing strategy. It's buried inside a handful of invisible habits that most people never think to examine. And once you see the first one, you'll start noticing it everywhere. Because this isn't just about money, it's about the way your mind quietly shapes every financial decision you make. Here's where things become surprising. Many people think poverty is caused by a lack of money. Sometimes that's true, but often, long-term financial struggle survives because of patterns that continue even when more money arrives. You've probably seen it happen. Someone gets a raise, a promotion, a bigger opportunity. For a few months, life improves. Then somehow the financial pressure returns. The stress returns. The feeling of being behind returns. The extra money disappeared. Not because they were irresponsible, because they carried an invisible habit into a larger income. Imagine someone named Chris. Chris spends years believing that earning more money will solve everything. Every financial frustration points toward the same answer: more income. So Chris works harder, takes extra shifts, builds skills, eventually gets a significant raise. This should be the turning point. Instead, something unexpected happens. Expenses begin expanding almost immediately. A nicer apartment, a better car, more convenience, more upgrades. Nothing outrageous, nothing shocking. Just a series of decisions that feel deserved. And that's exactly why they happen. The human brain adapts incredibly fast. What once felt luxurious quickly becomes normal. What once felt exciting becomes expected. And when expectations rise faster than wealth, financial progress disappears. The mistake isn't spending money. The mistake is believing every increase in income deserves an equal increase in lifestyle. That belief quietly traps people for years, because every raise creates temporary relief instead of permanent progress. And if you've ever wondered why earning more hasn't felt as life-changing as you expected, the next mistake explains a lot. It starts with a question most people never ask. What are you actually buying when you spend money? The obvious answer is products, experiences, services. But underneath those purchases is something deeper. You're often buying emotions, security, status, comfort, validation, relief. The purchase isn't always about the thing itself. It's about the feeling attached to it. That's where people get stuck, because emotional spending doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as logic. You convince yourself the purchase makes sense. You create reasons, justifications, explanations. Meanwhile, the real motivation stays hidden, the desire to feel better right now. And when money becomes the primary solution to emotional discomfort, financial growth slows dramatically. Not because you're weak, because you're human. Everyone experiences this. The difference is awareness. Wealthy people feel emotional impulses too. The difference is that they often notice the emotion before acting on it. That pause changes outcomes more than most people realize. Now let's look at two people facing the exact same challenge. Both receive an unexpected bonus. Both have worked hard. Both feel tempted to celebrate. The first person sees the bonus as permission. Permission to spend. Permission to upgrade. Permission to reward themselves. The second person sees the bonus as leverage. A tool. An opportunity, a chance to create more options later. Same money. Completely different interpretation. That's what makes mindset so powerful. Money doesn't create behavior. It amplifies behavior that's already there. And here's an insight you may never have heard framed this way. Poor financial decisions are often attempts to purchase a future feeling in the present. Think about that. The person buying status wants future respect now. The person overspending wants future happiness now. The person avoiding saving wants future comfort now. They're not buying products. They're trying to buy tomorrow's emotions today. The problem is that tomorrow eventually arrives. And when it does, the money is gone, but the future still needs to be funded. That's when financial pressure begins building, quietly, gradually, almost invisibly, which leads to one final question. If the real problem isn't income, spending, or intelligence, what hidden force keeps pulling people back into the same financial mistakes over and over again, even when they know better? The hidden force is something most people never see because it's operating beneath every financial decision they make. It's not a lack of knowledge. It's not a lack of opportunity. It's not even a lack of discipline. It's the need to remain psychologically comfortable. That need sounds harmless. It's not, because comfort has a price, and sometimes the price is your future. Think about a ship crossing an ocean. A ship isn't thrown off course by one giant wave. It's usually the small degree changes that matter. 1 degree off today becomes miles off tomorrow. The same thing happens financially. Most people don't become poor because of one catastrophic decision. They become financially stuck because of hundreds of tiny choices that all point in the same direction. Comfort now. Comfort now. Comfort now. Then years later, they wonder why freedom never arrived. The revelation is simple. Every money mistake we've discussed shares the same root. Choosing immediate psychological comfort over long-term financial flexibility. That's it. Different forms, same cause. The lifestyle inflation, the emotional spending, the avoidance, the procrastination, the refusal to learn, the constant comparison. All of them create relief in the present, and all of them quietly charge interest against the future. Once you see that pattern, something changes. Because now you're no longer fighting dozens of separate financial problems. You're fighting one underlying habit, the habit of escaping discomfort. And here's where things become hopeful. Building wealth isn't about becoming a different person overnight. It's about changing your relationship with discomfort. Most people think wealthy individuals are better at making money. Often they're simply better at tolerating temporary discomfort. They're willing to feel behind while saving. They're willing to feel patient while investing. They're willing to feel uncertain while learning new skills. They're willing to feel uncomfortable without immediately paying to make the feeling disappear. That ability compounds, just like money does. Imagine standing in a gym. 2 people lift weights. One quits the moment resistance appears. The other understands resistance is the point. Financial growth works the same way. The discomfort isn't evidence you're failing. Often it's evidence you're growing. That's the shift. And it leads directly to the behavior that changes everything. Not a budgeting trick, not a magical investment, a mental habit, the habit of creating space between impulse and action. That space is where financial futures are built. Think about how quickly most decisions happen. You see something, you want it, you justify it, you buy it. The process feels automatic, almost invisible, but wealthy thinkers often interrupt the sequence. Not forever, just long enough to think, long enough to ask a better question. Instead of asking, "Do I want this?" they ask, "What does this decision make easier later?" That question changes everything, because it shifts attention from the present moment to future consequences. Suddenly, money becomes less emotional, less reactive, more intentional. And here's the interesting part. The goal isn't to stop spending. The goal is to spend from clarity instead of impulse. There's a huge difference. One creates regret. The other creates alignment. The person who spends intentionally often enjoys purchases more because the decision was conscious, not emotional, not automatic. Conscious. That's what separates many wealthy people from everyone else. Not intelligence, not luck, awareness. They understand every dollar represents stored effort, stored time, stored opportunity, and they treat it accordingly. Now let's return to Chris, the person who believed more income would solve everything. Eventually, Chris discovered something surprising. The real breakthrough didn't happen when income increased. It happened when awareness increased. For the first time, Chris started noticing the invisible patterns, the emotional triggers, the rationalizations, the habits hiding beneath the habits. Nothing changed immediately. The paycheck stayed the same. The bills stayed the same. Life stayed the same. But the thinking changed, and once thinking changes, behavior follows. Slowly at first, then more consistently, then permanently. That's how financial transformation usually happens. Not through one dramatic moment, through a new level of awareness that makes old behaviors impossible to ignore. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Every unnecessary purchase starts asking a question. Every impulse creates a choice. Every financial decision becomes an opportunity to move toward freedom or away from it. And over time, those tiny moments begin creating very different outcomes. Which brings us back to the discomforting truth from the beginning. The money mistakes keeping people poor rarely feel like mistakes. They feel normal, reasonable, deserved. That's why they're so effective. That's why they survive for years. And that's why awareness is so powerful. Not because awareness instantly makes you wealthy, because awareness gives you a chance to choose differently. Before awareness, the pattern controls you. After awareness, you can challenge the pattern. And maybe that's the final hidden truth nobody talks about. Financial freedom is not primarily a money problem. It's a decision problem, a behavior problem, an awareness problem. Money is simply the scoreboard. The real game is happening inside your mind. That's where financial futures are created long before they appear in bank accounts. And that's why two people can earn the same amount, face the same obstacles, and end up living completely different lives. One keeps buying comfort. The other keeps buying freedom. At first, the difference is invisible. Years later, it's impossible to miss. So the next time you're faced with a financial decision, don't just ask what it costs today. Ask what future it creates. Because wealth is rarely built in the big moments everyone remembers. It's built in the small moments most people ignore. And those moments are happening right now. If this changed the way you think about money, stay with us for the next video, because the financial habits that build wealth are often the exact opposite of the habits that feel comfortable today.